to InnerTV. I'm your host, Althea Provost, and today's guest is Craig Campobasso. In this interview, we will explore his work in the film industry, his book, The Autobiography of the Extraterrestrial Saga, and his short film, Stranger at the Pentagon. We'll delve into the concept of polarity and duality throughout this interview. Let's start with a brief introduction of multi-award-winning filmmaker and Emmy-nominated casting director Craig Campobasso was 15 when he started in the entertainment business. After graduating high school at age 17, Craig went to work behind the scenes on such blockbuster film classics as Frank Herbert's Dune, directed by David Lynch, and two Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, Conan the Destroyer and Total Recall. He began his casting career on Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories, and he received an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Casting for a series on David E. Kelley's Picket Fences. Craig's casting career spans 3 decades. Welcome, Craig, to InnerTV.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, it's lovely to have you. I have a few history coins in my hand, and I'm inserting a history coin now, and you're 17 years young on the film set of David Lynch's Dune. What are you learning?
Then I was pretty much just out of high school, and I actually turned the job down because it was for being a PA, and I was already working. I just finished a job being a PA for a while at another film company. So I didn't want to do that work anymore. But anyway, they called me the following week, and I realized I really needed the money, so I took the job. And as destiny would have it, I wouldn't be in the places that I've been because in this business it really is who you know that takes you places, and those are the people who mentor you. So I was beautifully mentored by Dino and Rafaela De Laurentiis, the father and daughter producing team, and David Lynch. Just watching him do his thing was probably one of the most amazing times I ever had. So he had just finished doing Elephant Man and had been nominated for an Academy Award. So I learned everything from pre-production to production to post-production, and I went all the way through to when we had the royal premiere in London. So that was very exciting. I remember sitting right behind Prince Andrew. So it was I look back on it because it was 4 years of my life working on that, and it was my apprenticeship into the film business on a very giant budgeted sci-fi film, and I was able to meet Frank Herbert, and I believe I got one of the last autographed original book covers of Dune before he passed on. So
wow,
yeah.
So Dune was a popular book. It had its following, and some people felt the movie, although nominated for an Oscar, was a beautiful failure, and other people felt it was wonderful. So we have duality present on just the interpretation of a sci-fi film.
Right. Well, Dune was not nominated for an Oscar. David Lynch was nominated prior for, David Lynch wasn't nominated, and it wasn't nominated for Best Picture. I don't know if it was nominated in any other categories. I don't remember. I think it did win like one of the science fiction awards, and I went to that award show and picked up the award. And that award might have been for Bob Ringwood, who did the costumes, because they were really spectacular, because Bob lives in London. So I have a vague memory of that. There was a lot of expectation with the film. There was a changing of the guards from Sheinberg to Frank Price at Universal before the film was coming out. So that could have had something to do with it. But when it was released, I'm not sure that people understood it. I didn't really understand the book at that age. I had a hard time getting through it, even though there was a great dictionary about everything in the back. I understood it more when I saw the film, but later in life, when I was more spiritually awakened, I then understood the book and could get into it in more great detail. They're actually right now remaking it for the third time.
Exactly, because we have Jodorowsky's version of Dune, or his attempt at why he didn't get Dune. And
right.
Then we have Lynch's, and now, yes.
Right, well, the Sci-Fi Channel did, I think, book 1 and book 2, and it was their highest rated ratings to date. And right now, the director who did The Arrival, along with an all-star cast, Timothée Chalamet is playing Paul Muad'Dib, which is an excellent choice. So what they can do with the visual effects now compared
right.
to when we made the film, there were so many that they just couldn't do the blue within blue eyes. I mean, I remember going with Rafaela and Val Kilmer, who at the time was not set but being considered to play Paul Muad'Dib until Kyle MacLachlan was found. And wow. we went to some guy's laboratory up in Topanga Canyon. Rafaela, Val, and I were guinea pigs to do blue-on-blue lenses. But this guy, I remember, he looked like an old scientist with the, hair, wild hair and the whole thing. And we were laying down on a table, and he poured this solution into our open eyeballs without telling us what he was doing. So I remember that freaked me out. And but he was measuring the eyes to make the lenses. But in the end, they couldn't do a full lens because the eyes had to breathe. They did a lot of shortcuts, visual effects-wise, in the original Dune because they just couldn't figure it out. John Dykstra, who is a visual effects wizard, was on the film. There was a falling out between him and the producer, Rafaela, which was a shame because the film's visual effects would have been on par, so much superior than what they ended up being. So that's why I'm excited about seeing the one that's being made now with Timothée Chalamet. I really think they're going to be able to get into the story, the visual effects, and also here they're making a separate film about the Bene Gesserit.
Oh, I did not know.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. Actually, David Lynch on Lynchland on Facebook posted that. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So here, I feel like Spirit plopped you into David Lynch's world.
Yes, yes.
Because this was your destiny. I mean, you were to be influenced by the sci-fi community, and this really was your toe in.
It was. I truly believe, because I had turned it down and they had called me back the following week and said, you came highly recommended. You don't even have to meet with us. You can just start.
Handed to you, honestly. I really feel like the upstairs group was saying, nope, this is where he needs to go. He needs all this because he's going to do this later in life. That's
absolutely right. And looking back at it, that's exactly what I believed happened. So.
And preparing you. So I'm going to take a second history coin and I'm going to put it in. And now you're 26 and you're going through your spiritual awakening. What do you think this awakening is preparing you for now that you can look back at it?
Actually, this awakening happened right when I finished Amazing Stories. And I always say it's when my own amazing story began. Try and condense the timeline for everyone because there was so much that went on during that time period. I began having dreams with two very tall extraterrestrial beings and a blonde human woman. And in these dreams, I would see them and I would feel this emanation of love coming from them. And I would wake up and I would just put it off as I was just dreaming. And it kept happening over and over and over again. And then after a few months of that, then I would wake up in the dream where my soul was awake, and I would realize that I was standing before real beings. And all I kept doing was feeling this immense emanation of love coming from them. And then after a few months of that process, then I would have the same thing where I'd wake up in the dream, I would be with them, but then I would wake up in my physical body, and they would be standing at the foot of my bed in their astral forms.
They seem to like the foot of the bed.
They do, yes, they do.
They do. I was like, why? Okay.
So the thing was, one of the first things that they did was in this other dimension is through the palms of their hands, they fed my all this golden light with these gorgeous sort of like light particles went in to my body, and I was just filled with elation. I remember waking up, and really what it was doing was encoding all my cells to an awakening to the inner workings of the universe, into all of who and what creation is, right? So I began to wake up slowly, and during this 8-month waking process, I saw the beauty behind everything created. I could look at a person and I could see the beauty of their soul history. I could see what they had learned, what they were learning, and what they were going through in the moment. And it would be so beautiful to me that I would sob and sob and sob. And these were beautiful sobs, but it happened to like everything. If I remember once I was outside just taking a break. My casting office was in the Sunset in one of the high-rise buildings, and a ladybug landed on my fingertip, and I remember looking at that ladybug and seeing the beauty behind its creation, and again just sobbing. When I would meet actors, I would again get their soul history, and I literally would have to excuse myself, leave the room, go into another room and sob, and then come back. And this happened anywhere from 8 to 12 times a day, and it went on for 8 months. So it was also a cleansing process for my soul. And then the blonde woman process was done, ignited my light body, so I could then leave Earth and start astral traveling to other worlds and learning. So I started going to other worlds. I remember sitting in council rooms, listening to other people talk, and seeing an incredible gamut of all different kinds of incredible-looking beings. And then I would get up and I would talk about my experiences as being on Earth. I went through many different experiences there, but what this did is during this period I was writing everything down, and I decided I would put it into a book. And when I put it into a book, when it was completed, by the way, two of the beings that originally came are from the world of the great I Am. And they're not even from this universe or this super universe. We're in super universe 7, of which there are 7 super universes, so they say. And in super universe 1, they're in the first world ever created. It's where the first speck of light still burns and will always burn. So a lot of the teachings that were coming through them. When I went to Mount Shasta after completing this book, that was sort of my treat to myself. I was staying in a friend of a friend's cabin. It was above a garage, and it was a giant great room with high ceilings. One section had a bed, a living room, a dining room, etc. I went to bed, and I woke up in my astral body. I flew up to the ceiling, hovered, was watching myself consciously sleeping on the bed, and a 12-inch white glowing snake started slithering across the bed and bit me between my thumb and index finger. I saw my body jolt. My body then, my astral body, split into masculine and feminine into two. And then the I Am spoke, we are who you are who we are, you are to be what we are in me. And then my bodies fused back together, went back into my body, and that's when I noticed that a heart indentation was now clearly visible on my forehead. Like a real heart indentation where the third eye is.
Like the Harry Potter, his lightning, yes.
Right, like Harry Potter got a lightning bolt, right? I got a heart.
You got a heart. Well, he got his from a snake, and you got yours from a snake, but yours is a heart. What do you think that was about?
Well, the next day, I drove up to Panther Meadows by myself and left everyone in the big house. And I went to meditate there. And on the way back down, I was just in a beautiful, peaceful state, and I was driving very slowly. I had all the windows open, smelling the pine trees. And before I could slam on my brakes, I saw a 12-inch pure black snake, same size as the white snake, going across the asphalt,
right.
And I ran it over and killed it.
Oh, my God.
And I then slammed on the brakes, and I heard that you are no longer dualistic.
That's what I thought. I was
right.
like, okay, this is the dualistic. He had to go to split to come back into unification so that you can obviously teach about it.
Exactly. So then when I returned home, by the way, at that time when I returned home, there was this wonderful man who would go to Peru and bring back, I mean, hordes of the most beautiful crystals you've ever seen. And he had shared with me on many previous times, he called this crystal baby. This crystal was quartz. It stood about 12 inches tall, and it was pointed at the top. But the most curious thing about this crystal is in the back of the quartz was a perfectly shaped black onyx pyramid. And from that pyramid sprang 44 rings of pyramids coming out. So when you looked into this crystal, you were pulled into this pyramidal energy, right? Mm-hmm. So this was something that was sacred at some place, somewhere, and my vibe on it was always Atlantis, right? Mm-hmm. So he said to me, and he always kept this crystal locked up, and he never shared it with anyone, and he said, I have to tell you that this crystal wants to go home with you. And I'm fighting everything in my being to allow that to happen. He said, but it's so strong, it wants to go with you so bad that I'm going to let you take it home for a week. So I brought it home. I put it in my bedroom. I could not. It was so strong that I couldn't sleep, so I put it in the kitchen on the kitchen table. And one night I walked over to the kitchen table, and I astral traveled out of my body, walked through my apartment, put my astral hands on the crystal and kept saying, come out, come out, come out. Oh. And all the encoded information in this crystal came out, rushed into my astral body. My astral body slammed back into my physical body, and I laid in bed feeling my body chilling with major chills, like ringing chills for 15 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And the Maramayam father, who his name is Father Jacobaba, he was the main mentor of the three. He had come to me around that time, and he said, what would you say if I told you, this is right when I got back from Mount Shasta, what would you say if I told you that you wrote that book for yourself? And I said, then I've learned a lot. He said, now it is time to sit down and write the real book. And you are to keep writing until you can write no more. You are not to edit. You are not to stop and think. You are to keep moving. So at that time, I had 3 portals in my apartment. I had a 1-bedroom apartment. I had one at the foot of my bed, one in the hallway, and one in the middle of the living room that I could see because I used to write at my kitchen table, right? So then when I would start writing, I would see all of them coming down in energy form, and they would stand behind me. And, of course, in the beginning of these writings, I was not acclimated to their energy. So I would sit there, and my body would ring again with chills and chills and chills until...
I wanted to ask you that because when you said, I only had 15 minutes, that's something that would take me like a week of physical, but probably because they prepared you for your light body activation,
yes.
Your increments of acclimation was smaller.
Well, it was, but here's the thing is that I think they were waking me on a faster timeline than others, only because there was lots of work to do. So they were around because I went through a lot of heavy-duty reality shifts,
right.
like when you realize something is bigger than you.
Right.
When you realize, when they brought the concept to me that Christ was universal, and I don't know why that just set my belief system, because I never thought about anything. I thought, of course there's life in the universe. That was the extent of it, right? Oh. To think that all these beings are already like Christ, and not using that in a religious term, but in a spiritual term, that we're being fully conscious, whatever works for people.
To share with the audience, I'd like to say for the starseeds out there, what Craig ended up doing is he wrote a saga, and it became the autobiography Extraterrestrial Saga. And so he wrote for I Am Thrawn. In 2011, it was published, and then Waking Thrawn, and then Thrawn's Dossier, and then the Herbert Revolution. And what I want to know is, did you write all? I mean, what did it pour out of you? Is it more than these 4 books? Did you do the entirety of the 7 that you're going to share?
So, well, I started writing these books, I think it was about 25 years, right? I would try and find agents or publishers, and they just didn't even have a clue what this material was, even the spiritual ones. So I was rejected a lot at every turn until the self-publishing business started. So really, books 1 and 2 were really book 1. Right, and then at a certain point, I did get a 3-book deal at a very large publishing house. But then after being some time working with them, they decided they weren't going to do this type of material. They were going to just stay in the healing business with self-help books. So even though this is a kind of a self-help book, because it takes you through all of these guides and exercises. So, and then I wrote each book succinct. So the next book after book 4 is either going to be a prequel or a sequel, and I'm not sure where they're going to take it yet. I don't know. I wanted to know what happened in book 3 more than any of the other books, because there was so much going on in that book. And I don't know, I just wake up and I hear it's time to write the book, and I just sit down and it just flies out of me. I thought the book was going to go one way, and it went in a completely different direction, and what happened was anything that I couldn't even comprehend in my own brain, and I loved what happened in that book. So, and I cried through the entire book, literally cried writing that book. So
Craig's mother, Marie Donna King Campobasso, told him from the time that she was pregnant with him that she knew he would become a writer. I definitely feel that you are fulfilling your prophecy as a spirit and what you've come here to do, you know, with all the life-changing spiritual awakenings that you were meant to go through, not even the one at 26, but the ones that you're going to have in your future, to be able to bring this material out.
Yeah.
I've read, I think it was book 2 I started with, and I struggled with it, mainly because as a clairvoyant, you're so descriptive in your writing that it would clog my third eye, because I would be imagining, you know, every single thing that you were saying. It took me forever to get through, and I don't even know if I finished it, which is odd for me. I know I will. I turned to book 3, and I could not set that book down.
I know, right?
It was like something shifted in you. Something became very extremely fluid. The technology that you brought through the book, not just with the history coins, which is a nod to this conversation I'm having with you, but just everything that you were bringing. I mean, the fact that you even thought of the destruction of a soul.
Right.
You know, and how duality is, you know, a right versus wrong, a good versus bad. There's going to be angels, and then there's going to be a fallen one. And here, it's like this tribunal of what we would consider the fallen of the fallen, Lucifer, and the main character wanting to get to the bottom before he delivers justice or his dossier, to really understand what made this person do what they do. Is he looking at it from all perspectives and finding that the angels, Michael and Gabriel and the others, are hiding information from him? And so there's a little bit of like, who's on first here?
Right. Well, I think Michael leads him to answers. That's the one thing that guides and angels never do. They never just spit it out. They lead you to it, but Gabriel definitely was, I would say he was being more silent in the respect because he was part of that tribunal as well, too, you know, because of all of the hell and damnation that he had, ravaged across the universe.
Well, he is a light bearer of light and dark stars, so you say. And as the character is working with it, he's saying, was this because he was eventually degenerate into dualistic thinking, no longer caring for all universal kind, only of himself and the power of greed that he could obtain? I mean, you were really working out what was it that would make someone create pain and suffering, not only on this planet, but other what you would call prison planets. Can you speak about that?
Sure. Well, the prison planets used to be gorgeous planets until there was a war and that thing, and so now they're just dead planets in a system that has no sun. So they decided to use them as prison planets, and that's where Lucifer was, not celled, because they live on the planet, and then they have their own domicile that they build and live in. But being there alone for 250,000 years gave him a long time to think, and to be a solitary being with that, you know, it was very curious to Ron why, after all these years, he never accepted anybody from the Galactarian alignment to come and take down his lateral statement. But when Tehran was proposed to him, he accepted. So, you know, that was a big part of Tehran's journey.
Evolution, yeah.
Yeah, part of his journey was to go there and do that, and he had attained becoming fully conscious before that, because Tehran in Book 1 is born dualistic. In the fully conscious worlds, 1 in every 200,000 children born are born dualistic. And that is so that there are reminders for those who are fully conscious to have sounding boards of what dualism really is. So Tehran at an early age went to a boarding school for the dualistically minded, and that's where he met his best friends, Soltar and Pandasala. Pandasala ended up becoming his girlfriend for quite a long time. And they're all dualistic, and then they all enter into the commandership program and the Galactarian Alignment of Space Peoples and Planets, still being dualistic, but they're also at the same time working and trying to overcome their own dualistic tendencies.
The fact that you bring in the imager. Share with our audience what the imager
incredible?
is, because that was awesome.
Oh, my God. The imager does everything in their society, but one of the coolest things it does is it creates a replica of yourself that houses your oversoul, and it talks to you from your oversoul about what's going on in your life and how to look at it from a balanced perspective. Say only the brave dare to open up the imager and really take a good look at themselves, because it is intense spiritual work. That was
brilliant that you brought that in. I call it the Hall of Mirrors. Your character, Corona, question was, is my grandfather, Corona, dualistic? And duality status confirmed. Did he ever achieve his Christhood, able to overcome the shortcomings of one's program?
Right.
And, he's asking, like, what does that mean? And didn't want to look into the imager. He was, because getting to the root cause of his digression into duality, it's painful.
Oh, yes. Very painful. Very painful.
But it's introspection, and you touched upon that, and I loved it.
Yes. Teachings that also Tehran learns in book one is because we do go to Marama Planet, the world of the great I am, and it is there where Tehran really learns about duality. He also learns power of thought and the things that drive duality, and how, he just has access to a lot of the information. So,
what are the things that drive duality, Craig?
Well, I think I'm trying to put my mind back into book one, where some of those...
You said the imager shifted with him when Corona was looking. This is in book 4. Duality, the ego, is a spiritual tool designed to perfect human beings. Your light and dark struggle until you let go of control and allow what is. So anything that has an emotional protection system from either getting hurt or shielding oneself from really... the shielding of denial, you could say.
It is. So the main teachings are that emotions, right? So before the thinking creation, there was the feeling creation, right? Mm-hmm. And in the feeling is where all of the emotions come from. So all the emotions are the spiritual tools for not only dualistic beings, but also for fully conscious beings. Fully conscious beings just understand the emotions and the drive behind the emotions, so therefore they use unconditional love to heal situations instead of, in our world, dualistically, we use them to hurt, right? So the power also behind thought, as Father Jacobo says, is the truth of the triangle is the power of the pyramid. So we have the power to preserve, create, or destroy a thought. So in a simplistic terms, let's say we're in a relationship for many years, it's a bad breakup, and the other person is out there spreading bad lies and rumors and things like that. So we the ones who are sitting back hearing all of these things, we're either going to be fueled by hate, anger, and revenge, or we're going to work through those emotions, heal the situation, and remove ourselves from it, right? Most people go for the attack, and in the attack, all they do is they just keep creating the karma that keeps going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until maybe something drastic or physical happens. It's the emotional drive of all of these emotions that get us, and we learn that through what Tehran, Pandasala, and Soltar go through, and then I think Corona comes in, and he comes in, I think, maybe at the end of book 2, I think. And we also learn about that from him because he's on the wavelength. He's a little of both, right?
Right.
On the spectrum. And he wants to be so like his grandfather, who was an amazingly decorated commander. We learn how he attained that, and, that in the end was not the proper channels and things like that. And Corona just wants to cut corners to get there, but that's how he learns.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And he, just coming back to simply being, you write, once equilibrium is achieved in all emotions, Christhood is achieved, the heart and mind are one, and the ego is no more. And so that's that shadowy play that's really looking to cut corners, to not do the work, to allow one's emotions to get the better of them, that whole bit.
Yes, absolutely. And then how do you hear? Like here on Earth, when you're going through those things, how do you really work through them? I remember
throughout your book, it was about needing guidance. There was always someone that came forward, was of a higher vibration, one could say, or not higher, better, bigger, but one that had developed their soul more completely, that came forward. Do you say for people who are struggling?
I would definitely say to meditate. A lot of people say to me, I don't know how to meditate. I don't know how to connect. I tell them just to sit down, focus on a little lit candle in their mind and let their mind stay blank. Try and let their mind stay blank. Or to begin with, I love Jonathan Goldman on his website. You can download 7 chakra healing tones, right? So they could just people could listen to that and allow those tones to start aligning their chakras. But then is to whoever and whatever you're having a problem with, is to place them in your mind's eye, surround them in gold light or you could do silver and gold light for Mother, Father, God, pink light for love, green for healing, and purple for spirituality. And nothing bad can pierce those colors because they are of the light. Right? So then you start talking soul to that person about how you feel, and you create that dialogue. And if you do that every day and you just send a loving vibration, those things will start to take care of themselves. And to allow yourself not to, every time you may be having an angry thought or thinking about it, is replace it with 3 good thoughts. Even if you just say, live, love, life. Say it 3 times, right? And if you're really, really having problems with it, then, of course, the best thing to do is to seek some kind of professional help. I myself chose metaphysical counselors who understood. And most of them were psychic metaphysical counselors, so they saw everything that I had gone through, meeting, being brought up by these beings and things like that. So they understood my energy system on a much bigger, broader level, and could help me to understand things that I was going through here on Earth. And I'm talking about earthly emotional things. And I remember one time, I was having problems with somebody at work who was just evil. She was evil, downright nasty. And this was my exercise. And I have to say, I really didn't want to do it. I mean, I put it off for several weeks, and then I did it, and then it was hard the first day. Next day, it was easier, and it got easier and easier and easier until finally it just all dissipated. It's not like I became best friends, but the energy became neutral again, and that's right. What I wanted.
And you weren't having an emotional charge over it either.
No.
So you were rebalancing your own field.
And what we all want in our life, we want peace, love, and happiness. I'm willing to work for that.
Yeah, so am I. And I also think that my investment in peace, love, and happiness also turns into discernment. And it's not that I avoid realities for the sake of not, looking at something. I just don't encourage things to grow on my field.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
It's just this is my field. I have a choice on this, and this is what I'm choosing for myself. Pretty strong about that because I feel like this life is a gift, and I have a lot of energy for sharing it. Of course, I allow people to do what they need to do, but I have a joy for sharing the fact that we can go from density to light in this lifetime and really have what I call unlimited resources to produce the things that need to be produced. Last question for you. On the Universe 1, or the first created I Am,
yes.
Obviously it's non-dualistic, right? The super universe is non-dualistic.
I don't know about the rest of that super universe. I never asked them.
I was curious.
But on their world, it's all written about in book 1. They have initiates, and everything there is light, sound, frequency, color, all of those kinds of teachings. Everything that comes out of there is the color or the sound vibrations. So foods are created there and then brought out into all of the other universes and super universes. And if a world is supposed to learn certain things, there'll be certain foods that will be bred to help feed those energies in the beings that are, that will inhabit that world, or plants, vegetation, everything. So they are the world where all the DNA of everything is stored. It's amazing.
Wow.
It's just amazing. And when you learn about their robe, I'll just tell you quickly, the mastership robes are ultra-dimensional. When the collar goes up in the back, it becomes a cosmic computer. And all in Jacobaba initially appeared in a blue robe for communication. But in this robe are infinitesimal suns. There's so many you can't even fathom, and the depth of it. But he can call a sun forward. In that sun, in that world, he can obtain all the information from that world, right? So, and they can do that also with moons. They can do it with stars. They can do it with whatever, but primarily they're called sun cells. So it's really quite amazing. And he has even projected himself when in my early awakening, his light body in the middle of the day in my living room. That was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life.
I bet.
Yeah, physically seeing this gigantic golden light body with prisms of oval gold moving around like a great big beautiful power. Like this. And
right.
It was just like, wow, it's amazing. So,
Craig, I want to thank you for being on InnerTV and sharing this with our audience. It's been a really a delicious exchange, a very upward
thank
spiral.
you. Thank you so much. I really love being on. Can I give the websites if people want to look?
I was just about to do that for you. So please
great.
allow me to. Okay, so Craig has 3 websites. They'll be running across the screen and also be down below. If you'd like to know more about Stranger in the Pentagon, it's strangeratthepentagon.com. The autobiography of the Extraterrestrial Saga book trilogy, you can see it at www.autobiographyofnet.com. And then if you're interested in Craig Campobasso's casting, you can find him at craigcampobasso.com.
Perfect.
You like that?
I love that.
It is my pleasure to support you, and I'd like to remind other starseeds out there, if you'd also like to support the film, see those websites, especially A Stranger at the Pentagon, and, purchase the books. There's a lot of goodies he has with it, and it goes to a good cause, which is spreading the extraterrestrial message on Earth. Craig, I'd like to thank you for being on InnerTV, and to everyone else, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.